Hey, if you're looking to open a new vet clinic and you need a set of financial projections for either a bank or a potential investor, and you're kind of stuck and trying to figure out how to create your own projections, well, you've come to the right place because we have built a financial projection template built specifically for startup and existing veterinary clinics. And so I'm going to walk you through that template today, show you how it works. But first of all, my name's Adam Hoeksema. I'm the co-founder of Projection Hub. And over the last decade, we've helped thousands of entrepreneurs create financial projections for their business. And again, the template we're looking at today is our veterinary clinic template, which I have a link to in the description of this video on YouTube. And so you can go click that link and grab the template if you don't already have it. But let's go ahead and dive in. So the first thing you need to know is that any cell highlighted in blue throughout the template is an assumption that you can change without breaking anything in the projection template. So we're going to start here on this Input Assumptions tab, and you can see we can set a start date, and then you'll be able to add personal investment or outside investment. And one thing I'll note is that I have set this up for a startup vet clinic. You have the ability to fill this out for an existing veterinary clinic as well. So for example, you could put in your current cash balance, you could put in your current accounts receivable, but I've left all those blank because this video is focused on a startup. And so we are assuming that you're going to put in $100,000 to invest in your own vet clinic here that you're starting. And the startup cost, we're really assuming $5,000 in inventory, starting inventory, $180,000 in real estate improvements. So let's say you're leasing some space and you need to renovate the space and build it out for your clinic. $85,000 for the equipment that's needed, and then $20,000 for furniture and fixtures in the facility. And then we've got the $100,000 that you're going to invest, but we also have an equipment loan of $85,000 and a business loan, maybe an SBA loan for $250,000. That's what we're assuming here. And there's this handy little table down here that will show you, based on the numbers that you have entered, do you have enough cash? Starting cash, is it sufficient to cover your costs and not run out of cash before you reach break even? So this is a handy little table. So based on the numbers we have entered in there, it says starting cash is sufficient. So we're going to jump into the input revenue. And again, we're saying we have no current patients because this is a startup, so this is listed at 0. And then we're starting out with an advertising budget here of $3,000 a month. Because you have no patients, you have no customers, and you need to really advertise and bring in new customers at the beginning. So you need to really have a budget for advertising and marketing. And we're saying that the cost to acquire a new patient, a new customer, a new animal, a new vet patient is $25, and that so that $3,000 advertising budget is going to bring in 120 new patients from paid ads. And then we're also saying that you'll have 100 new patients from word of mouth as well. And you'll notice here that you can put in these growth rates. So I put in a negative growth rate, a negative 10% growth rate, which kicks in, if we scroll over here, you can see that the number of new patients from word of mouth starts to go down over time. And the assumption there is just that, if you're in a community, over time, everybody that has a pet maybe, or that could be a potential customer, has heard about you, heard about your clinic. And so you'll probably actually get less and less word of mouth customers over time because, everyone's already heard of you and has decided whether they're going to check out your vet clinic or not, right? So that's why we have that negative growth rate in there. This will calculate between your word of mouth patients and your patients from paid ads, total number of new patients. We set the maximum number of patients that the vet can kind of have as active active patients. And then the percentage of patients who will leave each year. So this could be, it could be animals passing away. It could be families moving away with pets. We're just finding a different vet clinic. And so you're going to have some percentage of your customers that we're going to leave and will need to be replaced each year. So we're saying 12%. Okay, and now we have the ability to add up to 4 different types of categories of services, okay? So we've got exams, surgeries, preventative services, pharmacy, labs, vaccines, and dentistry. And then you can add in your specific services that you'll plan to have, and you can categorize them. So, pharmacy services, that specific service will be in the pharmacy, labs, vaccines, and dentistry category. And then you can put in your the average annual spend per patient. So per animal, how much do you expect your average customer to spend per year on these services? And so, for example, surgery, maybe on average, 20%, 10% of your customer base ever would need a surgery at all. And so, but when they do need a surgery, maybe it's, $500 or something, right? Well, when you do that math, you can figure out, okay, what is the average annual spend per patient then? So just keep that in mind. We're not saying here, this isn't saying that a surgery costs $31. We know it will cost a lot more than that. Maybe it's $300. That maybe is easier math. So if it's $300 and they're spending, $30, it kind of means like 1/10 of your patients would need surgery that would cost them $300. But the average, since only 1/10 of them are taking advantage of that, the average is $30 per year. Hopefully that makes some sense. But again, if you have any questions about how to fill this out, leave a comment in the section of the comment section of the YouTube video below, or reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com. So I'll continue to move on here, but basically this is going to give you your average annual spend per patient. And we can see here that we did some research and we found that the average spent on vet services for cats and dogs in the U.S. was $183 per year. And so based on that, that's kind of how we came up with this breakdown. We wanted this to add up to 183 because that was the average spent per year. Okay, and then we're assuming that you're going to collect or get reimbursed for 90%. So maybe there's some insurance or something that you don't end up getting the full 100%. If you're cash or credit card for all your services and you expect to get 100% paid, you can just change this to 100%. And that's going to calculate your total revenue. The one thing I didn't mention here is here's your cost of goods sold, material cost to provide the services. So if you have specific costs associated with providing a service, and what we did here, if you'll notice, if you double click on this, you'll see that what we did is we just took a percentage, 21.4%, which we got from a survey from Live Oak Bank that says the cost of goods sold percentage is 21.4% on average for vet clinics. So we just took this dollar amount, multiplied it by 21.4% to come up with the cost of goods sold. All right, so jumping over to our input other expenses, you can enter in different operating expenses that you're going to have, or different categories of expenses like accounting. You're going to have credit card fees. We set this as a percentage of revenue. And so you'll notice here that you can select this drop-down box that an expense is either a fixed dollar amount or a percentage of revenue or a per FTE, a full-time equivalent employee. So some expenses might be a percentage of revenue, like credit card fees is a good example of that, where 2%, you might charge 2 or 3%. So of your revenue would go to credit card processing fees. And you can have different fixed expenses. And then just as an example of something that might be a per FTE expense, maybe like a workers' comp insurance or something like that, that maybe it's, $20 per employee or something, and if you want to add that, you could make that per FTE there. And okay, so speaking of how do we end up calculating the full-time equivalent employees, that comes in over here on our input salaries and dividends tab. And so you can add, the way we've set this up is you can add veterinarians, vet techs or assistants, and then other positions. And we have created quite a bit of flexibility in this table. So you can set some pretty interesting compensation structures. So let's say vet number one, which maybe is you as the owner, you're paying yourself a $40,000 base salary, and then you're getting variable compensation of 25% of your production. So 25% of whatever revenue you bring in, you're getting as variable compensation. That's the way that's going to work based on how we have that entered in. And we're saying you can set what percentage of the total revenue is generated by each employee. And then you got your taxes, benefits, and then what month that position started. So we're saying, the first vet here started in month 1. And then we say actually ending month 24, because in month 25, that vet number 1, we're changing the compensation. So we're saying, okay, you're going to get $50,000 as a base in year after year 2, and then still getting that 25%. So you can just see that's an example of how you could start a position for a couple years of the projection and then kind of switch to a different structure. You can do it that way. So then we also said we're going to hire a second vet as well, veterinarian in year 3. And you can see that entered here. So starting in month 25. And then you've got these vet techs, part-time vet techs or assistants with salary. Let's say they're not getting any variable compensation. If you wanted to, you could give them variable compensation as well. Benefits, and then start month here, we're saying beginning in year 2 or month 13 is when the first part-time vet tech is going to start. And then month 37, so the beginning of year 4. Then for front desk, we're saying that, month 7 is when you start having a front desk. When you first open up, it's possible it's just you as the owner. You don't have many patients yet, have many customers, so you're doing everything. But then once you hit a certain number of customers, you're going to need help. And so you hire a front desk worker in month 7 is what we're saying. And then as you continue to grow, maybe you have an office manager by the beginning of year 5 or month 49. So that's an example of how you could fill that out based on your own plan. All right, and so once we do that, we are all done here, and I've brought you to our at a glance tab, where you can see your profit and loss at a glance, some different summary charts and tables and graphs, startup, funding, kind of sources and uses of cash here, a break even. If I can scroll over, kind of a cash generated from operating activities or a break even, as well. So yeah, and then our annual sales and profit margin graph. And then you'll get a 5-year income statement summary, 5-year cash flow statement, 5-year balance sheet summary, and then an income statement by month for each of the 5 years, cash flow and balance sheet all by month for each of the 5 years. And that will really do it. That is our vet clinic template. And so again, if you have any questions, leave a comment in the video comment section below, or reach out to us at support@projectionhub.com, and we would be happy to help. Thanks.